Okay, everybody. I guess we are ready. It's 3:20 and 12, 13, 14, 15 seconds. If anyone hears me back there, we are starting. Please get around. Get around. Um, welcome everybody. My name is Marko Ilimkovic. I'm a software engineer at Infinum for the past 10 years, actually 8 years, sorry, but I've been working with Ruby for 10 years. So this is actually in August, I think it was my anniversary. Yay! Yeah, Ruby is awesome. Uh, I just wanted to say that I'm really not a superhero when it comes to these kinds of public speakings and everything. Definitely not on this scale like other people that before me were. If you can feel it by my voice, a little bit of trema is here. So basically, I've been talking. You will indulge me for at least a minute now to talk through it because I think really it's a really cool presentation, and I want to get the voice back in control. So I've been talking to a lot of people about this, and they told me that the best way to actually get rid of any kind of anxiety, stress on public speaking, is actually to simply impress your audience. So how do I impress my audience when there are developers that have been in this game for 20, 30 years? Well, I'm going to do a backflip. So you can make like this. I'm not gonna do a backflip, I don't know that. But what I do know is how to keep your dependencies up to date. Actually, not dependencies, but many projects that use dependencies. So let's get started. Thank you for indulging me. Uh, Why did I call this actually a maze? It's basically because when you are using a lot of projects that have many, many dependencies, it kind of feels like you're in a maze because you cannot really update everything at once. You need to be doing it more in a more structured way. And sometimes that's not really possible. So basically, we came up with a process of how to actually do that. We had a talk today, I think it was the after the lunch break, the first talk in the main track. Someone just said, use the Pandabot. And while that is true, our talk is going to be delving a little bit more deeper into how to actually organize the process if you're inside of if working for a company that has dozens, 20, 30, 40, I don't know how many projects, and you have to keep all of them up to date for all the various reasons. So this is going to be our agenda. As you can see, there is everything is about the problem actually, because this problem won't go away. There is no solution for it that you just apply and that's it. It doesn't exist. So let's start with revealing the problem. Uh, we live in the golden age of software development. I think we all can agree on that. And mostly software reusability. And I believe that there are a couple of you here that are actually gem maintainers and owners, and they are contributing to the open source. And don't fret, I'm not here to tell all of the people here to not use gems and that's it. Definitely use gems because they are practical, they are convenient, they are time saving, and they are maintained by our beautiful community, and which I really, really, really like because the community basically follows a lot of rules, a lot of standards. The semantic version is on par. In the 10 years I've been working with, no rule has been broken except for that one. I think it was the image magic was yanked or something like that, and it created a whole mess in the Ruby community. But yeah, basically, don't reinvent the wheel. So continue doing that. What you're doing, we are. We usually, when we do something, especially with the big players there, like Rails, Device, admin, dashboard stuff, Psychic, all of those you definitely should be using. You just add a single line of code, you do some configuration changes, you bundle install everything, and you get the code from people that have been in the game much longer potentially, and the other people actually found edge cases that they've solved. Everything is covered by tests. You save a lot of time with that. So continue doing that, please. Uh, we also have, oh yeah, who does Reddit here? Raise your hands. Not that many. Okay. There's a subreddit called Data is Beautiful. I love it. And if anyone likes data, the next couple of slides are going to be amazing for you. So I took a lot of information from Ruby Gems. If someone is historical and knows that Ruby Gems came out in 2004, they actually have their public database from 2009. And this graph shows how many gems in total there are through the years. So as you can see, there's around 180,000, something like that, gems. And all of those are public, so you can actually install them. There's even more of them, but you have to be careful because they were pulled down or yanked, or they don't exist actually anymore. So when you take a look at this data, all of these gems are actually here. The count is exact. When you then take a look at the spread over the years as they were going, as they were being released, you can see that 2014 was the year that the most gems got released, and I came into the game here at that year. So yeah, there's quite a lot of them, and that's good because our community is big and we are thinking outside the box, and we want to enable a lot of people to easily fix stuff. And that's what makes Ruby, I think, because one of the best things about it is that you can basically slap a couple of gems there, install them, and you got a production application in a matter of days. But the first problem that occurs with using gems is the fact that when you install a gem, a dependency, it doesn't just mean that you have one dependency. As you all know, a dependency usually has more dependencies, and sometimes those dependencies have their own dependencies. So here is a little bit of data. I just ran a Rails new dot, and there's like 15. Hello. So there's like 15 gems inside of the gem file at the time of installation, but in actuality there's 80. When you do a little bit of a more like an application like a month old and a year old, something like that, you usually end up in the area of 40 to 80, and in that actuality it goes around 180 to 220 gems, total gems in your gem file lock, unique ones of course. If you have a bigger app that has 100 and more gems, of course, it doesn't go, it's not that big of a jump, but it does go up all the way to 300. Basically, you need to look at dependency as having some kind of weight. So if you find a gem that does really little things, sometimes you need to just weigh the pros and cons. If it does have a lot of dependencies, you can maybe not install it, but actually implement your own thing inside of your own code base. It's basically like organizing a trip. If you imagine going by yourself wherever you want to go, it's just you. It's very easy to organize. You have your own requirements, needs, wants. It's easy. When you think about 10 people organizing it, or actually you organize it for 10 people, it's, no, 100, 200, count me out. Yeah, and dependencies, something that maybe probably a lot of you know, but dependencies evolve as our code bases do. And the fact is, at least as I've seen it, because we in Infinum, we get a lot of legacy projects, and a lot of these legacy projects come outdated using Ruby 2.7, or even lower than that, even though 2.7 got end of life 4 years ago, something like that. I think 3.0 is also going to be end of life currently. So that's like really, really weird. And Rails comes at the version 4 or 5, something like that. And that's just crazy because people are ignoring the dependencies. They just then install them and they think they are a frozen state. Everything is good. So yeah, we need to think that the open source authors spend a considerable time maintaining these gems. in their life cycle, and they introduce new features, bug fixes, optimizations to the performance, and a lot of other things. And we should be thinking about that when we are actually developing and grooming our application or inside of our project. And this can be seen in this graph. Our initiative that I'll be talking in a couple of minutes when I actually explain the problem is using a process that we created, and we only spend around 8 hours per month. And you can see that with each passing month, which is really kind of wow, I would say, you get the number of total dependencies around 60, 70. And for each month, they go back up. So everybody's working. Like, like everybody's working. That's really cool. So, but if you've been around in like 2019, 2020, it was really popular to find those blog posts at the end of the year, beginning of the year. Is Ruby dead? I think this gives you a pretty clear answer. Ruby's not dying. Ruby's not going anywhere. It's staying strong, and it's still beautiful. Yeah. Then I will show you something that we are not really proud of, but you know, everybody has their own shame.css and other files where you keep all of your crappy code. Just a couple of marks here. This is kind of a dynamic, I would say, graph, because it doesn't just go linear with the time. Um, yeah, I added these just play buttons and forward buttons. So from 2014 to 2000 and yeah, the first 6 months of 2014, it was going normally. 2014 in April, we started this project. We didn't update it, and it was slowly increasing. And then you can get to the right part where things go a little bit faster, just because we don't have a big screen to actually show all of this. And remark these three actually bumps. These bumps are the downwards bumps. So what happened here is that a feature came. There was actually a couple different scenarios. The first one was a feature came. We wanted to use a new gem. That gem had a transient dependency that also had a matching transient dependency from an existing gem, and we couldn't install it because of the incompatibility issue. So the only thing that we could move forward is actually bump the gems. And we were like, at that point, I mean, I wasn't in Infinum at that part, but I saw that they updated the gem so that I actually can move forward. The second, I can't remember, it doesn't really matter, but the third one was because ImageMagick was yanked, and we had to actually bump that gem. So yeah, this was actually the situation which shows us that we had updated the dependency. The green line is a little bit of a more of a spike toward down, like a drop, because we started actually with the initiative, but since it's a project that hasn't been updated for 8 years, it's really difficult to update it. But it's also difficult to update it because of the own business logic and mostly infrastructure, which is out of the scope for this presentation. And yeah, this is just to put everything into perspective. The blue graph that you see is from the previous graph, which is now an updated project, as we call it. So some of you might be wondering, why do we need to care about the state of dependencies if we have a project from 2014 that's working, right? So let's take a look at more graphs. This is a bit more of a data-rich graph, which shows all of the dependencies that we've been working in 2001. At the point when we started actually updating everything. You can see that we have two outliers here. Those are really big applications that I think also, no, one was internal and another one was built from scratch in 2005 or something like that. So it's been quite around, and we didn't never basically updated it. And all of the other ones are around the 200 mark. But mostly you should also focus on these ones, because we found out that when you keep your dependency count, the total dependency count, outdated ones, around 70 to 120, 130, a lot of years can pass, and we can think of that project as being up to date, because it's really easy to set up on new machines. It's really easy to keep it updated, to bump major versions and stuff like that. And this is in the same graph actually, but a little bit expanded into 2023. You can see that all of these outliers around the 200 mark are now down to between that range of 100 to 120, with the only outlier being the same project as we've been discussing, that red line a couple of graphs before, right? This one, the upper one. So yeah, but I still didn't explain you the real problem, right? I promised you that I will tell you that a project from 2014, it still works. So why do we need to update the dependencies? So let's actually understand the problem. We can actually look at it from two perspectives. The positive one, half is glass is half full and glass is half empty. So what happens when you update dependencies? As it says, you get new stuff, you get free improvements. I just pulled out quickly all of the data. In Rails 5 we got action cable and API applications to keep our applications smaller in size. Then in 6 we got action mailbox, parallel testing, action text, which was beautiful, because I remember when I came in 2014, one of the biggest things was, and Rails was still then very monolith heavy, everyone was doing monoliths, and every application, at least in my older company, we've been building these rich text editors, and nothing was working out of the box. Everything had some problems, and action text came around, and it's beautiful. Same goes with multi-DB support for performance reasons, and Rails 7. I'm not going to even start reading it. Rails 7 came with a lot of cool features. And looking at it from the other perspective, what happens when you don't update your dependencies? Well, nothing at the first start. Like the first, I think a week. I give you a week or 2 weeks tops. Nothing will happen. Everyone is happy. The project kick off. The client is very happy with the speed of development, with how quickly we came to production. The first issue is then after a week or 2 or 3, the first CVE, and also the opportunity for your pen testers to actually try to catch it. I really hope to actually find a pen tester that really knows their CVEs and doesn't just go into a dashboard, enter some JavaScript with alerts, and then refreshes the page and, oh, you have an issue. So yeah, not fixing CVEs, or as they are known, common vulnerability and exposure, involves quite a lot of risks, like remote code execution, data leaks, SQL injection, and cross-site scripting, and basically just any user data not being properly handled. And in case some of these things happen and you don't address them, if you're not doing an application just for yourself, if you're doing it for a client, it depends, of course, on all of the legal protections that you've placed in your contract with your client. But what can happen is you could be charged with a breach of contract in case an attacker actually tries to expose the data or do anything with that data. They can also terminate the relationship you're working with. There can be fines, and just in general reputational damage. So fix your CVEs, people. I hope you know about bundler audit and checking it. Then, I don't know, a month, 2 months, 3 months in the future, things will happen, as we've seen in that graph with those 3 circles. You can have a new feature request, or anything that you need requires a new gem. Gem incompatibilities can happen, and you will spend not too much time, but maybe sometimes more time than necessary to actually get your dependencies up to date to support that feature. After 3 to 4 years, something like that, in my experience at least, new machines are coming. That doesn't mean just new machines, but actually also new developers joining the company, you gaining a new laptop which has all of these new native extensions, and the compiler cannot actually install stuff, and you end up with having to update your dependencies. And the last thing that can happen is the OS end of lifing. Unless you have your own server in your own room and maintaining it, if you're using AVS, Heroku, or something like that, a point will come where the OS version you install the system on is going to get deprecated. They will shut it down or whatever, and they will tell you, send you an email, hey, please update your system. And at that point, you will have to call your client and tell him, yeah, we will have to feature freeze now. This will last like 2-3 weeks. We have to get this up to date, and then things are kind of sketchy. Not sketchy, but tricky. So yeah, how much is the price of ignorance and neglect? Depends on the project, of course, but two examples I took out is Infinum and GitHub. For one of our applications that we updated from Rails 5 to Rails 7, it took us around 500 hours. That's everything like back-end, front-end changes because the API was changing, QA, stuff like that. And for GitHub's example, which you can find definitely, it took them from Rails 3 to 5, 1.5 years. So hopefully this answers why you should be updating your dependencies on a regular cycle. But what happens if you have many projects, and how do you actually create a process around this to keep your team wanting to do that and to keeping them motivated for that? By the way, if anyone recognizes this game, I salute you. We are now 30 to 40, 45, something like that. So yeah, at this point, we actually, when we started this initiative, we definitely said we need to change our dependency upgrade culture and the processes. And this is what came out of it. Circumventing the problem, because there is no solution, as I said. There is just how to ease up all the work that you have to do, because it's an ongoing battle. We separated it into chunks so we are going to go through them quickly because I have 10 more minutes. Jesus. Prerequisites. Please keep your code coverage high. You all know simple code. Keep it at around 90-95% if it's possible. If not, as high as you go, it's better, so that your tests break when you are actually updating the dependencies. Remove any private API usages. I know it's cool. I know it's fun to actually dive into the gems and try to hack them, monkey patch them if they're private, or if they're not even if they're not documented. So maybe if you find something that's public, maybe they forgot to encapsulate it. Remove all of the undocumented API usages, basically. And of course, implement a disaster recovery plan. If things go awry, you can quickly switch back and do it at a time when the client approves it. So now that everything is in place, first topic is mandated upgrades that you need to do. That's the most significant change that we introduced. Small, frequent bite-sized chunks for upgrading all of the projects. It proved the best. It just takes a little bit of inventiveness to be able to get it to production faster and in a safe manner. Upgrade early, upgrade often, keep it small. Dependency triage. Not every dependency is the same. So prioritize your upgrades. You have security updates, Rails upgrades, Ruby upgrades. Keep them in that order, I would say. Security we already went through it. Rails, because it got a lot of optimizations and a lot of features. Ruby upgrades, also the same reason. And then you have all of the other ones. Just to emphasize, prioritize your security updates, please. Then you can also scan the QR codes now. A couple of slides we'll be getting here. So when you want to plan major upgrades, please keep them in isolation. All of this, what I've been talking about, is also going to be focusing on the patch and minor versions. But when it comes to major ones, keep them isolated. Tell your QA what this does. try to point them to the page that they need to test, and even better, you can do it yourself if the project manager allows it the extra time that's necessary for that to do. But when you have Rails to actually upgrade for 5 to 6, 6 to 7, you can actually use our public Infinum handbook for Rails upgrades. It's got really nifty things that you need to take care of, and when you're actually updating the major version of Rails. Improve your stakeholder awareness. When I say stakeholder clients, they are probably paying. I really don't believe that that some of you are not charging them for maintenance. So when it comes to maintenance, keep this inside of the maintenance. We will go through a couple of tools now to actually get you to a number how much for a project you should allocate hours per month or per week. Depends, you will see in a couple of minutes. But yeah, tell them about GitHub, tell them about the facts that will happen if you don't do anything about the dependency, if you leave them to rot, I would say. Yeah, we also figured that tracking the dependency health, so a little bit of gamification came inside here, and we wanted to know from a scale of 0 to 100, something smart, something cool, to actually know how much a project has from a 0 to 100. And we came with Revisor. It's an internal app that periodically aggregates all of the Ruby dependencies from all of the projects inside of our GitHub organization. It has a nice dashboard which you can filter with the projects, and you can see the health column. The first one also gets a star, which is very cool. People are actually fighting around it. And what else can you do? What it does basically, when we say health score, this is the formula that it uses. Not going to go too deep into it because it will take me another 30 minutes, but basically it takes all of the gems in your gem file, it looks at how many outdated versions it's got, it calculates those, it sums them up. It also takes into consideration the priority of the gem, so if it's Rails, it's more important, if it's device, it's more important. There's a logic around it, and then it adds up all of those, divides something, some things happen, and we get a number. We also added Slack notifications that we integrated with our project channels where our clients reside actually. And a really cool thing happened where we have clients that are kind of competing clients, and they know about each other, that they are actually hired in Infinum. And something happened, they started actually asking, how is that other company doing? So they kind of got into competitions. This is the Slack notification for a project that doesn't have CVs. This is the one that has a couple of them, or one, and this is one where you really have a lot of them. Okay, and after a while, for Euruko, we had an idea to actually extract this calculating logic into a gem called Polariscope. You can scan this code here. The only FYI is you need to use Ruby 3, actually install it using Ruby 3. You can go into a project and run Polariscope scan after you update it, and it will scan your Ruby 2.x project and give you a score. Next feature is actually going to be also to calculate the version of the Ruby, because currently it's only gems. So technically, if you have a Rails application using Ruby 2.7, or it doesn't have to be Rails, any kind of Ruby application, you can have a score of 100, maybe. And what you can do if you have laptops, you can gem install Polariscope, go into a repository, run Polariscope scan, and at the end you can tell me if you got 100 or close to 100. We also wanted to track proper progress over time, or regress, to get some empirical data, and this is what gave us the ability to basically glance how the project needs to be updated, how much it needs to be upgraded. Does it need 8 hours per month? Does it need 2 hours per month? Does it need an hour a year? And I have actually an example of just once per year, but it's not a project actually. For this, we have Gemorama. I'm not sure where my graphics is. Doesn't matter. It's a graph. So Gemorama is a public Rails application that got released recently. It's not in production, let's call it like that. You cannot use it when you go to, it's not live. You need to pull it down and use it actually yourself. So give this to a developer. If you're a developer, you can clone it. There's README instructions on how to set it up and use it to actually get all of the graphs that you've been seeing. Before we go into Dependabot, I will just quickly go into the terminal. And this is going to be tricky now because I first have to go out of the application. Yes. Then people told me don't code or don't write any code on your, especially on your first, but to hell with it. So I have a chart command because I didn't want to remember the date when I started working with Wordle. Wordle, does anyone like Wordle? Yes, I hope you do. Because I created a small Ruby application that basically you can play Wordle with it, because in 2022 I played a lot of Wordle when I was during COVID. And I didn't want to play it once per day, I wanted to play it more. So you can, when you set up Gemorama, you can just run from when you want to have basically the graph, and just add the path of the Ruby application that you have. While this is running, does anyone want to play a little game? No? Should I go out? Okay. We usually start with crane, right? Oh, then we have pies. Oh, nothing. Any cues? Any help? No? Okay. I added a nifty helper. And I won. Cool. Yeah, this is going to finish just now. Perfect. Oops, Dr. S. I don't know who that is. Okay. And let's see what happened here. Localhost, projects, Wordle. And this is what you get. So basically, now we can glimpse what happened. So the first commit, actually, when I started the date, we had only one outdated dependency. And as time goes by, you can see there's months, now there's a year even gone, and it's almost 1.5 years, and I only have 16 outdated dependencies. So what I can do is I can just bundle, update everything now, and everything will be working still. Oh, shoop. Okay, so if I go back here, we can go polariscope scan, not scam. It does not take all of your data and put it somewhere. You can check the code, it just does math. So polariscope scan, we get, I think it's around 50, which is good. No, I don't know. 80 is something that you should be aiming. Below 80, it's kind of bad. Well, that's gonna be embarrassing if it breaks now. Yeah. That's because of the internet. It always is very slow and very bad. Okay, until that runs, I will go back to my slides, if I can find where they are. Oh, 59.76. It's usually faster, I promise you. Try it at your home. Okay, go back to full screen, and let's continue. So, as I said, major upgrades, isolation. All of the patch and minor versions, you can use Dependabot. But how do you use Dependabot? It's like the previous guy said, just use Dependabot. But this is a really nifty, tried out on production, at least for our apps, configuration, which gives you this. 3 monthly PRs that are automatic. It includes explicit and transitive dependencies, and the groups are Euruko dependencies, development dependencies, and all of the non-major production dependencies. One really cool hint as how to use that: don't through all three PRs, cherry pick it to staging, because conflicts in gem file logs are, I would say, almost impossible to resolve without issues. Do it one by one, go to production. So basically, the development and test dependencies should not break production. I really hope it never broke for our apps. We really go quickly to staging, we deploy it, we open a couple of apps, smoke test it, everything is working. Then what we do is go merge it to production, and then you go to the next PR. You tell Dependabot through the comment add Dependabot reopen. It will just close the PR and open a new one with the resolved conflicts. You do the same thing, and then you go to the third one. That's it. It takes less than 8 hours, and the rest is revenue. The other cool thing about this is that all gem change logs are in one place. So if you visit all of these PRs, you will have the change logs for every gem, and you can go through it if you see there is any breaking changes. But of course, if you have CI/CD with GitHub Actions or whatever, you will see that if your specs are passing, you're quite certain. I would say quite certain that you can actually go forward with it, at least to staging. That's it. Sorry about the 3 minutes, organizers. Sorry about everyone taken from the coffee break. Check out the following links. Email us at team.rails@infinum.com. We are looking for cool and smart, as you all are, developers, engineers, to work with us. And yeah, email us if you find anything cool or not. Thank you. We don't have time for QA, so thank you.